thank you for joining us for another episode of Behind the Mic, powered by Revolt Podcast Network. I am your host, Wise Grisette, podcast enthusiast. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Revolt Podcast Network. Hopefully we still got TikTok, y'all, because you know. Anyway, and you can also follow us on Twitter, formerly known as X, at Revolt Podcast. Now, I really need y'all to do me a favor. Please subscribe to Behind the Mic. Give us 5 stars. Give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. I really appreciate it. Now, you know a little bit about us, so let's talk about our guest today. Our guest is 1/4 of Carefree Black Girl Podcast, Season 10, now recording. We know her on the episode as the Doctor. Doctor Phoenix Luxe. Thank you for joining us on an episode of Behind the Mic. How are you doing today?
Good, and thank you so much for having me. Please don't mind my Ghibli-inspired home in the background, but you know I gotta stay on theme, so I am very happy to be here. I feel really good, and I'm ready to get into behind the mic.
Let's get it. And behind you, I see some Funkos. I gotta get my Funko collection up because they stacked. You got them stacked over there. I see.
And listen. I was like, I'm just gonna get one. My first one was a Whitney Houston one. Then I was like, I'm gonna get 2. And now I have a whole Blerd Funko little shrine. It's like my special project because I kind of like I want to get all Black characters because you don't see a lot of people with like a lot of Black Blerds. You see a lot of anime ones. So I have a few anime, but I got a special place for all my Blerdy ones.
That's incredible. And I don't know if you know this, but Whitney Houston is my birthday twin. So, you know, we already starting out on the right page. We know that you tapped into the anime community. We know you tapped into the Blerdy community. But let's start with the tunes. So we have this exclusive playlist on Spotify called B-Side Track of the Week, where you can find all of our guests' favorite songs anytime. Now, B-Side tracks to me are songs that aren't really popular, but are good or as good or better, in my opinion, than A-side songs. So what B-side track do you want to share with us today and why?
Oh, can I do 2?
Sure can.
Okay. First one, I'm going to do Selfish by Ballad. This is a B-side track because it isn't one of his singles. He is an independent artist, but it is a song that I just never get tired of. It's on like 3 playlists. And it's very reminiscent of old R&B, like just that real thing. And much like his namesake, like ballads. And my second one is Soul Catcher by Inu. It's a self-love song. And I love seeing a Black man do a self-love song. And he's also a singer as well. I've cried in the shower to that song, especially going through my doc program. So it is a really, really good song. He is out of New York, actually, and he is Congolese and Haitian. So shout out to him.
Incredible. Okay, you know, I'm always going to shout out my New Yorkers. So we here again. All right, y'all. So again, you can find that playlist on Spotify. It's called B-Sides Track of the Week. Tap into that one. So now we know a little bit about you in front of the mic. So let's talk about the person behind the mic. You know, we call you Doctor, the Doctor. So talk to us a little bit about who you are, your background, and why we even call you Doctor Phoenix Luxe anyway.
Yes, let's get into it. So Doctor Phoenix Luxe is a small town girl hailing from Lake City, South Carolina, with big dreams. The person I am behind the mic is very close to the person I am in front of it. I have spent a lot of intentional time trying to make sure I have space for my authentic self, because growing up in a small town, you know, you really have to have a lot of self-esteem, especially when, for me, you don't always fit the Eurocentric beauty standards. I was a dark-skinned girl in the South. very curvy, very loud. That's not anything new, but it's also not something that's often celebrated. I always love fashion. I always love helping people. I always loved being creative. I didn't really know how to put those together through much of my 20s. I figured I had to do one or the other. It was either creative or work what I call like a street job. So it really wasn't until the pandemic I worked in nonprofits after college, helping people living with HIV. Loved that, loved the community, but I was still missing that creative piece. Went through my master's program. I got that helping people part down. That's really good. And then the pandemic hit and it was like the world changed. And when I moved for my doc program, I found and stumbled upon this wonderful movement called Black Fae. And I was like, ooh, I want to participate. And I almost didn't. But something was like, no, do it. And so I got my first wings. I did my first ever cosplay. And I haven't told anybody this before, but I did not do makeup up until like 2020. So I actually hired a makeup artist for Black Fae to do my lashes and stuff because I was so excited. And so once I did it, it just like clicked. I was like, I need to do this more. So I got really involved with Black Fae to the point where it changed just how I viewed the world and how I wanted to help people. And in that way, Phoenix Luxe was born. As my doctoral program progressed, I realized that I think I can help people if I put a little bit of Phoenix into this academic world. And once I did that, I changed my entire dissertation topic. I focused on creativity and play for Black adults.
That's incredible. I remember last year we went to Black Fae Day. Shout out to you for the invitation. And I just sat there with like my crayon. I think I have like coloring pencils and a coloring book. And I just like vibed around everybody. And the community was just so just embracing and just kind. Everyone looked amazing in their cosplay. So first off, thank you for inviting me to that. Thank you for presenting that community to me and helping just share that and like the thing that they're trying to share across the country. So yes, appreciate it.
Yes. And I honestly did not do my first cosplay until I was 31. So I am still kind of new to this, and I'm glad you got to experience it, because once you experience that community, you really do see like, dang, we can just exist like this, like really just out magical. And so that's what I really try to work on behind the mic when I'm not yapping.
That is lovely. So before we go, on Carefree Black Girl podcast, for those who are not tapped in, you use the phrase joyfully militant. So tell me a little bit about that and what that means to you.
The reason I say joyfully militant is I think sometimes when people actually get to meet me or they hear my perspectives on socio-political things, it kind of catches them off guard because it's very Malcolm X coded. And so they see me with like the fairy ears and I'm, spreading joy. And then, we talk about, economics or some serious issues, and they're caught off guard with how militant I am. But the reason I say joyfully militant is I have that stance just due to the history and facts that I learned. And my militancy is not for war, but it's to get the joy that Black people deserve. So those stances come from me wanting to see equity across socio-political things so that Black people can experience joy. Like, we should not have to be millionaires to be able to take a day off and play in the park like we did with Black Fae Day. As much as I love doing that, it always just hurts me a little when someone is messaging and they say, oh, I want to come, but I have to work. I have to work. And that robs us of so many spaces. And so when I say joyfully militant, it means that I am very serious. And there's also books that talk about being joyfully militant, very serious about advocacy and speaking truth to power. But the reason I'm doing it is for joy, not for war, not to tear anyone down, but to build my community up.
I absolutely love that. And knowing you as a person, I know that you mean that to your core. All right, y'all. So on the other side of this break, we're kicking it into overdrive with our rapid fire game right after this break. I've always wanted to have the opportunity to talk to each of you individually. And guess what? Now I can, thanks to Fanlist. You can now visit fanlist.com/podcast with an S and leave us a voicemail. Share your thoughts, your favorite moments, and even shout out a host that inspires you. Who knows? You might even hear your voice on the podcast. So visit fanlist.com/podcast with an S to get started. I'm looking forward to hearing from y'all. And we're back, y'all. Thanks for sticking around. And we are now kicking it into overdrive with the rapid fire game of overrated or underrated, Blerdy Edition. All right, Phoenix, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, y'all. So we are starting in 3, 2, 1. Overrated or underrated? Dan to Dan.
Underrated.
Okay. Overrated or underrated? Naruto.
Overrated.
Ooh, spicy. Overrated or underrated? One Piece.
Overrated. Too long.
Overrated or underrated? Dragon Ball Super.
Underrated.
Underrated. All right, we're done. There was some hot takes in there. Ooh, there was some hot takes in there.
Listen. I get what Naruto does for the people, but there are others that I feel like should be talked about more.
Well, okay, is there any? Give me one or two that you want to shout out.
One or two, okay. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. If you have not ever watched that, it is an experience. I got to see it when it premiered on Adult Swim. I'm dating myself. I was screaming at the TV. I remember with my bestie. It's an experience. For new school, there is one that I feel like people aren't talking about enough, and I love the art style, called The Elusive Samurai. People should definitely get into that.
Okay.
Because it has historical context and it blends so many like art forms. And One Piece is the friends we made along the way. They still ain't found it yet. What episode are they on?
Try about like 1260 something. Like, I don't know, man. I never got into One Piece neither. I just watched the cool fights on YouTube, and that's about it. That's it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I have watched One Piece, but I'm not gonna lie. I catch little bites, 3-4 episodes here, 2-4 there. I can glean the story, but I can't sit for 40 days and 40 nights with One Piece.
I am crying. That's hilarious. All right, y'all. So before we go, what's the one thing people need to know about you that they wouldn't get from listening to Carefree Black Girl podcast?
One thing I want people to know about me is that I have recently started transitioning to identifying as Soulaan instead of African American. The term was derived from TikTok. Shout out to that creator of the term. And Soulaan is for Black people, African descendants of slaves in America, but it refers to us in a way that means soul. And so that's really important to me because it begins to give us something to speak life into. So if you hear me say Soulaan or Soulaan culture, that's what it means. And I also have a private practice that's called the Care Soulaan. And Soulaan is spelled SOU. Soulaan, and it's pronounced Soulaan. Some people say Soulaan, but I think that's the fun part. We're gonna get different accents. And the Care Soulaan kind of is like a moniker for hair salon, and I made it specifically for Black women and fembies, and it's all about our wellness and care. It's something that I'm a little shy about promoting. I don't know why, because I'm a yapper, but I think it's because it's something that is so central and important to me that Black women and Black fembies, Black trans women have a safe space where we can collectively build community that centers our health. And so that's something that you may not get from the podcast. And I may start promoting it more soon, but please follow that page. And if you are a Black woman or femby and you're looking for care, hit me up.
I love it. And please do. Where can they find you on socials? Where can they find the websites? Tell the folk everything.
So listen, TikTok might be gone, but I'm Phoenix Luxe on all platforms except Instagram. That is where I am Blerdy Love. You can find me on Pinterest, Lemonade. Got a fan base. Don't know how that's gonna go for like a few more days. TikTok, and you can find me. If you follow the Care Soulaan, you can also sign up for my monthly newsletter where I give tips about mental health and wellness that centers Black women and Black femby experience.
The doctor, y'all. Okay. Y'all can find her in all those places, and you can find her on Carefree Black Girl podcast twice a month. Okay. On YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the places, y'all. So again, thank you all for listening to another episode of Behind the Mic, powered by Revolt Podcast Network. I'm your host, Wise Grisette. You can find me at The Real Wise, Wize, because I'm special like that, y'all. Internationally known on the microphone as Wiz, Wizzy, and Wise. And we are signing out. Catch you on another episode of Behind the Mic. Behind the Mic, powered by Revolt Podcast Network, is hosted by me, Wise Grisette. Special thanks to the Indie Creative Network and Storytime Studios for editing and producing this podcast.